Shalom. Are we closer to a new Kristallnach than you think? That's what I want to talk about today. But first, remember, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give us a thumbs up. It really helps. Thank you. Let me explain what Kristallnach was all about. Kristallnach took place on the night of November 9 and 10, 1938, in Germany. During that dreadful night, a critical event happened that would seal the fate of 6 million European Jews. That was 83 years ago. The event is known as the Night of Broken Glass, or Kristallnach. The reason given by the Nazis for Kristallnach was the assassination of German official Ernst von Rath, shot 2 days prior by Herschel Grinspan, a Polish teenager reacting to his parents' deportation. That's the reason given by the Nazis. In reality, the boycott and pogrom of Jewish synagogues, schools, businesses, and homes, resulting in the death of about 100 Jewish people and the destruction of 7,500 different properties, was well planned, and anything but a reaction to the death of one German official. It was well planned ahead of time. As a result, again, 30,000 Jewish people were sent to concentration camps. As a matter of fact, historians agree that Kristallnacht was the onset of the Holocaust, shifting Nazi antisemitism from mere rhetoric to pure violence and murder. It set in motion the death of millions, the death factories aimed at accomplishing the final solution to the Jewish question. And they almost succeeded. So wherever there is any kind of abuse in the world, whether it be in the tight vice of a dictatorship, religious fanaticism, or ethnic cleansing, to name just a few, the grip of abuse is always facilitated by the apathy of those who could make a difference but don't lift a finger. It has been my intention year after year, each and every year, to remind my audience about the importance of Kristallnacht, of that event, and why we should remember and commemorate it every single year. Given that a recent survey showed that 32% to 50% of young Americans had very little or no knowledge at all or understanding of the Holocaust, my job is not done. In following current events on the topic of anti-Semitism against global Jews in Israel, it is not difficult to see that another event similar to Kristallnacht could very well happen today, wherever there is a sizable Jewish community. There are 4 criteria that connect to Kristallnacht today, looking at Kristallnacht decades ago and today. The 4 criteria I want to cover are identification, demonization, ostracism, and apathy. All these were employed in preparation for the final destruction planned by Hitler. They have parallel in today's world in how the Jewish people are perceived and handled today around the world. Number 1, identification. So we go back to 1933. Identification. Hitler was so obsessed with streamlining the population to bring about the ultimate Aryan race. So you would have to identify people to do it efficiently. As early as January 1933, soon after his ascent to power in Germany, he set up a passport. It was known as the Ahnenpass, or Ancestor Pass. It was created to establish an Aryan identity as opposed to other races or ethnicities. It was based on the pseudoscience of eugenics. It was done in an effort to create a superior race, the Aryan race. The Ahnenpass became an official piece of identification for people to prove that they were of German blood, quote unquote. The other side of that coin was that anybody who did not have an Ahnenpass would be identified as non-Aryan, and stigmatize for further actions against them. Now, friends, anytime a passport is created to divide the population, it is only the beginning, and it inevitably creates hardships, division, and inequality. A passport can be started for social, political, racial, or even health reasons. Just keep that in mind. Next is demonization, 1935, so 2 years later. What the Annan Pass started was reinforced by the new racial laws enacted by the Nazi Party, known as the Nuremberg Race Laws, or more commonly known as the Nuremberg Laws, not to be confused with the post-war Nuremberg trials. That's different. That's the trials of the Nazi murder. So the Nuremberg laws of 1935 were divided into two categories. One was the law for the protection of German blood and German honor, and the other one was known as the Reich Citizenship Law. Different names. Both were based on the false science of eugenics, or racial purity. In their entirety, the Nuremberg laws were aimed at ostracizing the Jews from German society to the point of making work, life, and socializing virtually impossible. They represented the foundation for the Nazi definition of who is a Jew, who is Aryan, and as a result, who deserve to live and who deserve to die. It's always easier to demonize those you first ostracize. So marriage between Jews and non-Jews became forbidden. Jewish-owned stores were taken over. Jews wanting to leave Germany were taxed up to 90% of their estates. Jews were required to also carry identity cards at this point with the letter J stamped on it, as well as being forced to insert the middle initial of I for Israel for males and S for Sarah for females on their papers to identify them as Jews quicker. Jewish doctors could no longer treat non-Jewish patients. The Jew became demonized and as such became unwanted. A complicated bureaucracy of anti-Semitic statutes was enacted. Statutes and mandates, transforming the Jews from humans to animals to parasites, and thus requiring their quote-unquote extermination. What do you do with parasites? You exterminate them for the betterment of the world or of the Third Reich, at the very least. So demonization was soon deemed not enough, and Nazi Germany had to take it a step further and ostracize the Jews. Today, the modern boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, the BDS movement as we call it, seeks to demonize both the Jews and the land of Israel. It takes its cue from the evil era of the Holocaust and paints a picture of Israel as an occupier, colonizer, and committer of ethnic cleansing. This unfounded demonization is from the devil, and he uses all walks of life to commit his crimes, from the right to the left, to academia, to Hollywood, to even the Christian church in some cases. Yeah. And the next one is ostracism, 1938, 33, 35, 38. During the night of November 9 through 10th, 1938, a pogrom took place in Germany that would result in, as I said before, great property damage and loss of Jewish lives. Jewish stores were attacked, looted, synagogues were burned to the ground, people died, but more importantly, the Jewish community understood one thing. They were no longer safe anymore, and they had nowhere to go. They were officially excluded from all aspects of German life and society. They lost all their privileges. There are countries today that are trying to ban kosher laws, kosher ritual laws, and as a result, cripple Jewish life for some segments of the Jewish religious community. So there are some similarities here happening today. Next is destruction, 1939. Not too long after Kristallnach, the Nazi killing machine was set in motion. It claimed the lives of a grand total of 12 million people who did not fit the Aryan mold, quote unquote. Half of them simply because they were Jews. And I believe about 1.5 million of them were children of the Jews. First, with the Nazis work with what's known as the Einsatzgruppen, or mobile killing squads, who shot Jews in large numbers in front of large ditches, and then they would bury them there. Yad Vashem explains the Einsatzgruppen, and I quote, the Einsatzgruppen kill their victims, men, women, and children, by gathering them in ravines, mines, quarries, ditches, or pits dug specially for this purpose. Jews were forced to hand over their possession and remove their clothing, and then they were shot. Very often, they dug their own graves before. Their bodies were thrown into the ditches. That required a lot of bullets, which at the time were needed for the war effort. So the Reich developed something else, the gas vans, to kill more Jews faster and without shooting them. The gas vans proved more efficient, and they led to the construction and usage of the infamous gas chambers. Destruction was moving full force. Today, Jews are being killed again, simply for being Jewish. We are not seeing mass murder of Jews like during the Holocaust, not even close. Yet, although we know biblically that the whole world will eventually turn on Israel, as we see in Zechariah 12:9, and even though God will come to Israel's rescue and never forsake Israel based on his covenants, and based on his character as well, many Jewish people remain at risk. The main reason why Jewish people remain at risk is not anti-Semitism by commission, but apathy, which I call anti-Semitism by omission. The less people care, the more damage can go unnoticed. Apathy happens for a variety of reasons. None of them justifiable when it comes to human life. So you see, there are many similarities today between the way the Jewish people were treated as a result of the events of Kristallnach and during Kristallnach, and the way our liberties are shrinking exponentially. Convenience has become the mother of tyrannical slavery. We are willing to let go of our freedoms for the sake of having more, having a more comfortable life. In the process, people don't dare to get involved in what they feel does not concern them. The Jewish people have fewer and fewer friends nowadays in the non-Jewish world. Kristallnacht happened under the nose of a very civilized and educated German society. What makes us believe that another Kristallnacht could not happen today? We live in a civilized and educated world that has also become politically correct and apathetic, I'm afraid. The soil is fertile for such a tragedy, and it is up to us to remember and to speak up. In closing, I want to quote Martin Niemöller, pastor of the German church during the war, who was quoted saying, and I quote, "First they came for the communists and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the trade unionist and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me and there was no one left to speak for me." That was Martin Niemöller, a theologian and German pastor, and he penned this in 1946. We can make a difference, but we need to speak up. Shalom.